Hey guys, Michael from Copper vs Glass. Now Google I/O 2015 is just around the corner, so I'm going to be doing my predictions video for you guys 2 days before the actual event itself. Now I put up some polls on Google+, so if you guys want to follow me, I'll put a link just about here so you guys can follow me on Google+, and also I'm on Twitter as well at this link just here. Now I put up 2 polls, one of them just asking kind of just in general what you wanted to see from Google I/O, and something a bit more specific in terms of devices. So, let's take a look. Okay guys, so I'm going to go over the actual polls themselves first, and then I'm going to go into some actual proper predictions about what I want to see, and just in general a bit more in depth in terms of what I actually think is going to be appearing at Google I/O this year. Now the first questionnaire that I'd done was just a general one. It was basically some other predictions, or just in general other products, or any other updates that you guys want to see from Google this year. Now I'm going to be looking at my laptop quite a lot because the app that I use to do kind of a teleprompt isn't working, so apologies for looking down a lot at my laptop. So in terms of what I actually had, I had updates to Android Wear, which can include stuff like the Moto 362 and just in general updates to the actual software itself. I've then got a larger rollout of Android Auto, Google Glass for the public, updates to VR from Google, and also anything else, at which point you guys can comment down below. Now by far the most popular thing that people want to see is an update to Android Wear with 42% of votes. Now that's just under around half, so it's definitely a popular subject and something that I definitely want to see. Now at one point I did have the LG G Watch, I then sold it because the functionality just wasn't there, and it didn't really do much more than show me whatever was on my phone, on my wrist, and just kind of made me ignore more people. Sometimes if I get a notification on my phone, I can leave it on my pocket, but if it happens on my wrist, I was kind of forced to have a look and see just what it was. So for Android Wear to do something a bit more would definitely be great, and it looks like you guys agree. Next up with 29% of votes is Google Glass for the public. Now this one is definitely again very popular. Google Glass has been kind of quiet as of lately, so it'd be great if they could bring it back as kind of a surprise and say, look, it's going to be available to the public on this date for X amount of pounds or dollars. And obviously the price in my opinion has to be under £500 here in the UK for it to be a purchase in my opinion, and just in general something that people actually want. But there is also the problem of Google Glass not really being accepted in the public at the moment. A lot of places like bars and restaurants are banning Google Glass in America for those that do have it, so it could cause some problems, but to see the technology evolve and advance would definitely be great. With 18% of the votes is Android Auto rollout being a lot bigger. Now here in the UK there's going to be some Hyundai cars that are coming out later on in the year that have Android Auto, but there's only 2 models available and that's just not enough to make it mainstream. Now at the moment you can get a lot of third-party accessories for cars to kind of retrofit some Apple sort of consoles into your car, but you can't really do that with Android Auto just yet. Now it will be coming at some point from what I can see, but a larger rollout and just putting it in more vehicles and things, or at least having the option to get it maybe for some extra cash, would definitely be a great thing, and again just gets Android everywhere. You've got it in your home, on your TV if you've got like a Nexus player or a TV that has the Android OS on it, and to have it in your car when you're out and about as well, just to get everything integrated, would definitely be a great feature that I'd love to see. With only 7% of the votes, and something that I was actually quite surprised about, is Google VR or Google Cardboard, or if they come out of any new sort of VR headset, it seems as though not many people want to see that. Now that's probably because the technology and the applications and things aren't really there just yet, and there's not really a practical use. Now obviously Samsung have some devices out, but they're obviously specific to different phones, and just in general I don't really think they are that useful that much. Now I obviously picked up Google Cardboard just to give it a try, just to see how it was, and it was fun for the length of time that I've used it for, but it's mainly just been sitting up on this shelf behind me here, and I haven't really touched it since. Now when I've had family and friends come over, I've let them have a quick go to have a little play around and just see how good or bad it is, and they have been impressed, but again they've kind of all said the same sort of thing, that there's no practical use for it just yet, and it seems as though you guys don't really care all that much about it just yet either. And lastly, the last point was any comments below, and that only came in at around 3%. Now, the kind of comments I was getting is things like security and things, which I'm going to go on to just in a bit when I'm talking about Android M, and just in general some improvements to Android, the rollout of Android, and just getting it on maybe some older devices in terms of the latest version of Android. I had some people in the comments say they've only just got Lollipop, and some people are still on KitKat and even Jelly Bean, so it'd be great to see them expand Android so that these older devices could get it, and maybe actually make it up to Android or Google as to who gets the latest version of Android instead of leaving it up to the carriers like Verizon, AT&T and things like that. In the UK, I think it is slightly different because from what I can tell anyway, a lot of the phone carriers don't really have that issue that you do in America. So our rollout of Android and just in general the newest version 5.0 Lollipop is a lot quicker, and I've seen a lot of devices with it. Even phones like the Sony Xperia phones and some older Galaxy devices, they've got it here in the UK, but for some reason for you guys in the US, it seems like a bit more trouble. Okay, so the next poll that I've done was a lot more specific in terms of what's going to be coming in terms of new devices that people do or don't want to see. Now, the highest percentage that people kind of want to see tomorrow at Google I/O is going to be the newest version of Android, which is codenamed Android M. Now, that could stand for a ton of different things. It could be Mars bar, Milky Way, marshmallows, mushrooms. It could literally be anything. Obviously, Kit Kat was quite unexpected and Lollipop was a bit unexpected as well, so it could be named anything. But in terms of functionality, I'm going to kind of leave that towards the end of the video, as I'm going to go a bit more in depth in terms of this section, in terms of the devices, and what we're actually more likely going to see at Google I/O within the next couple of days. With 40% of the votes, and something that I was very surprised about was a smaller Nexus device. Now, see, the Nexus 5 that came out was a reasonably sized phone. A lot of people enjoyed it. The Nexus 6 took things to the extreme, and it was kind of the only option, and right now is the only option for the newest Nexus device. There was a time when they were selling the Nexus 5 alongside the Nexus 6. That's now over and done with, and I think a lot of people aren't necessarily happy about that. So one thing that I would say is I'm kind of looking forward to a smaller Nexus device. Obviously, I've recently switched over to the 2014 Moto X, and it is a great phone, and just in general, the way that it's built and the way that the actual operating system is extremely nice. It's running stock Android pretty much, with a couple of apps on there from Motorola, and it's actually just at this moment in time getting the newest update to 5.1, so again, it's not really that far behind a Nexus device anyway. But a lot of you, from the sounds of it, aren't necessarily happy about the Nexus 6 being so big, and you want to go back to the original form factor of the Nexus 5, which was, a lot more handy, and just in general the size was a lot more what people actually want, instead of being forced to buy a phablet phone, which a lot of people don't necessarily need. And with only 9% of the votes was a larger Nexus phone. Now, I'm not saying larger as in larger than the Nexus 6, I'm saying the same size or around that sort of size as the Nexus 6. It seems as though a lot of you aren't necessarily a fan of that. Now, obviously, phablets and just in general bigger phones kind of exploded after the Galaxy Note series, and obviously the Note 4 is an extremely good phone. You've got the iPhone 6 Plus, plus a bunch of other phones from Korea from some lesser known manufacturers like Huawei that aren't really that big here in the UK. And obviously the Nexus 6 as well. In terms of sales, I couldn't find any of the sales figures online, but from what I can tell, they're not necessarily as good as what happened with the Nexus 5. Now, there could be a number of things. It could be just down to the size, but most likely it's going to be down to the price. Coming in with only 4% of the votes was a new Nexus tablet, which definitely surprised me. I was expecting a lot of you to want a newer Nexus 7 or a slightly smaller tablet than what we've got with the Nexus 9, but it seems as though you're not really too bothered, and again, that may be because of the size of the Nexus 6. If you've gone out and purchased the Nexus 6, you don't really see a need for a Nexus 7 or a 7-inch tablet of that sort, and you may have a Nexus 9, or like me, you've got a laptop, and you just don't really see why you need a tablet in the first place. But that was actually quite a surprise. I personally thought that a lot of people would want a new tablet from Android, but it turns out that sometimes I am actually wrong. And with only 3% of the votes, which is kind of sad, is an update or a new Nexus player. Now, unfortunately, when I'd done this poll, for some reason I completely forgot about the Chromecast, so a lot of the comments that I got on this poll were saying that they want a new Chromecast, an update to the Chromecast, and basically something that's in between the Nexus player and the Chromecast in terms of maybe price and also functionality. To be able to play games on the Chromecast would be awesome, so to get controller support would be a great feature to have, and like the Fire Stick that you can get from Amazon, if the Chromecast actually gave you a TV interface as well, that would also be nice. Now, at the moment, you've got wallpapers and things, and it relies heavily on you streaming things from your phone to the device, so something in between would be great. And again, I couldn't necessarily find the sales figures for the Nexus player, but from what I can see, they're not all that high. I mean, the price is around £79, which in my opinion is a bit steep for what you're actually getting. So again, from the sounds of it, you guys also aren't all that interested in a new Nexus player. Okay guys, so after the actual predictions of what I think is going to happen and also some thoughts from you guys, I want to go on to actually what I think is going to happen and just in general a bit more detail in terms of the devices. Before I do that though, I just want to say thanks to everyone that voted on Google+. There was around 1,500 people that voted, so again, if you do want to follow me on either Google+ or Twitter, then hit these links just here. You can follow me, we can have some discussions and things, and you can be involved in some future videos. And I'm also going to put some links down in the description below to some of the people that I thought put in a lot of input, and just in general we had a bit of a discussion in terms of the actual polls themselves. So the big thing that I want to see at Google I/O and that I think is definitely going to happen is 2 Nexus devices. We're not just going to be getting one like we've had in the past, and we're actually going to be given a choice of sizes. Now I think that the Google have kind of figured out from the success of the Nexus 5 and also the somewhat success of the Nexus 6 that people kind of want a bit more choice from a Nexus device. They've got that with the iPhone, you've got the iPhone 6 and also the 6 Plus. So again, Apple are giving people the choice of having a super large phone or something that's a bit more manageable, and I think Google are going to go down that route as well, with something similar size to the Nexus 5 and also similar to the Nexus 6 as well, which I'm definitely excited about. Now the first of 2 possible devices, from what I can tell anyway from rumours and just in general looking online, is going to be an LG made 5.2 inch phone which currently has a code name of Bullhead. Now the LG Bullhead, what I'm going to be calling it right now, is said to have a 5.2 inch 1080p AMOLED panel, and it will have a pretty standard sized battery at 2700 mAh, which is slightly bigger than what was in the Nexus 5. It will most likely come in 16 and 32 gigs in terms of capacity, but it won't have expandable storage, and also that battery that I mentioned earlier will also be non-removable. In terms of processor, that's also unknown, but it's safe to say it will use the same Snapdragon 808 that's currently in the LG G4, which is LG's current flagship alongside the G Flex 2. It's also going to have an hexa-core chip that can rival most flagships this year like the Samsung Galaxy S6 and the HTC One M9. Now it's unclear on further details, but it's basically going to be the Nexus 5 for 2015 that everyone wanted after the release of the huge Nexus 6. And I'm pretty excited about that, to be fair. Now as I mentioned, I recently switched over to the Moto X. I was getting slightly bored of the Nexus 5, so to get a new Nexus device that is around this sort of size, I'm not going to be complaining. Now the second device is going to be a slightly better phone, and it's also going to be slightly higher end in terms of performance and just in general the way that it's made, and rumours are pointing to Huawei being the actual manufacturer, and the code name at the moment is Angler. Now obviously, as you remember, a lot of Nexus phones and just in general Google products have code names that are to do with sea creatures, so obviously with these names floating around online, it seems quite likely that we are going to be getting 2 devices this year. Now in terms of this phone, it's going to have a 5.7 inch QHD display, so it's going to have a much better display with a very high pixel density, which is similar to what we had to the Nexus 6. Huawei uses the Snapdragon 810 in its current flagships, so chances are it's going to be using that same chipset with either 3 or 4 gigabytes of RAM, and obviously as the device is bigger, the battery is also going to be huge at around 3500 mAh, so it's going to last you well over a day. It could also have expandable storage, which would also be nice for those that are not yet using the cloud, and this would be the new Nexus 6 of 2015. So again, it would be amazing if Google did offer 2 flagship devices, one that has slightly lower specs and also a powerhouse of a phone, and it would also be great for the pricing to represent that as well. Obviously the Nexus 5 was a lot more affordable than the Nexus 6, and again I think that's why a lot of people enjoyed the Nexus and kind of kicked up a bit of fuss when the Nexus 6 came out, because it was hovering around flagship price. Now I'm not saying that the Nexus 6 isn't a flagship device, but the whole point of a Nexus phone is it's a niche market. If you go into a phone shop, most people are going to be sold on the iPhone or the newest Galaxy phone, and the Nexus kind of gets left behind slightly, but that's not a bad thing. In my opinion, people that are hardcore about Android love Nexus phones, and to be given the choice of 2 different sizes I think would be great for Android and also the people that are using the actual devices themselves. Now on to tablets at Google I/O, and to put it simply, there isn't going to be one. No, but on a serious note, I really hope that there is a new tablet. I was a huge fan of the Nexus 7 if I couldn't really fit it into my lifestyle. Like I say, at the moment I've got my 13-inch MacBook and I've also got my Moto X, so I don't really see a kind of need for a tablet of 7 inches or above, but I did enjoy it and I can see why a lot of other people would as well. Now obviously those that want a smaller, well-built tablet, your choices are quite limited at the moment, unless you want to get something from maybe Samsung or maybe a Korean manufacturer, but just in general the build quality and things and the fact that it had stock Android and it would get updates straight away is kind of what sold me on the Nexus 7 in the first place. Now, I would even take a price drop on the Nexus 9 as pretty much a good announcement if Google were to do that. Now, I haven't got a Nexus 9 myself and I haven't actually used one apart from in shops and things, but from what I've been told, they are great tablets, and again, the fact they're running stock Android, getting the updates, front-facing speakers and things, again, the Nexus 9 can't be all bad. Now, where is the Nexus 10 that a lot of people have been waiting for? Now, from what I can tell, it's been around 2.5 years or so since the Nexus 10, which is 940 days, 22,000 hours, or 1,353,000 minutes, or around 81,216,000 seconds, but I'm not really counting, but I would really like to see a Nexus 10 or something similar to that, because again, the Nexus 10 when it came out was an awesome tablet, and a lot of people that I know still currently use it. Now on to updates to some of Google's streaming things like the Chromecast and also the Nexus Player. Now the Chromecast is selling amazing well at the moment. I have one, Barry has one, and also my parents have one, along with 10 million other people reportedly from around the world, which is around how much they've sold more recently. Now the Nexus Player on the other hand has had price reductions, special offers, and currently isn't even in the top 40 in terms of best-selling tech on Amazon or the top 10 from Best Buy, unlike the Chromecast, which is actually in both. Now, I'm not saying again that the Nexus Player is bad, but something in between the Nexus Player and the Chromecast would be what I personally would want, and also the price I'd like to reflect that, maybe around £49 or $49, or maybe slightly less if they can, and you know, I would probably get that. I've got a Chromecast currently, but to get some extra functionality out of it, either by updating the current Chromecast I've got, or a slightly newer piece of tech that isn't really all that much in terms of money, again, I would really appreciate that too. So in terms of the Nexus Player, I'm sorry to say it, Google, but either drop the price altogether or just get rid of the actual device. The Nexus Player needs to be an impulse buy, much like the Chromecast, because that's pretty much where it gets a lot of success from. If you go into PC World here in the UK, or just in general any other tech shops or gadget shops, the Chromecast is usually near the till. Now what that means is when you're walking around, you pick up what you need, walk to the till, and it's right there, the price is good, chances are someone's going to pick it up, and like I say, a lot of people have done so. And now moving on to something that's very close to my heart, and that's Android Wear. I really wanted to love the LG G Watch and also enjoy Android Wear, but I just couldn't get to grips with it. It wasn't really functional from a perspective of someone like myself that has a device on them all the time. Any notification that I'd be getting on my device would show up on my LG G Watch, and just in general there was no function to it apart from basically a second screen to my Moto X. Now one thing that I'd love to see is a bit more in terms of functionality, but that's going to be quite hard to do because again a lot of people don't want to do a lot of things on their wrist because it's a bit finicky, it's a small screen, and it kind of looks a bit dumb. I would love to see a new Moto 360 with a completely round display without that flat tire at the bottom, or just in general some others from some other manufacturers like Huawei that are also doing really well, and you know, maybe some lower end ones so that they're more affordable for people that don't want to spend £199 on a smartwatch if they're maybe unsure if it's something that they actually need. Also with the release of the Apple Watch, I think Google need to pull something out of the hat. In the first 24 hours, the Apple Watch sold more than Android Wear combined for the whole of 2014, and that is an extremely large number. So I think Google needs to do something different and something a bit special so they can get more sales, get a lot more people interested, and ultimately make something like a wearable piece of tech on your arm normal. I mean, I do know some people that have got the Apple Watch, and they don't really use it to its full potential. And the same with Android Wear. I had an Android Wear device and I got rid of it because I just didn't really see the point. So I need Google to be selling me something that I need and that I actually want to use on a regular basis. Now onto Android M. Now one thing that I would say is it's been quite secret in terms of what Android M is going to be, whether it's going to go to 6.0 in terms of the actual model number, or whether it's going to stick with a 5.2, 5.3, but in my opinion I think they just need to go straight in there with a 6. Now I'm not saying that they need to copy Apple, but obviously Apple with their biggest releases, or just in general their yearly releases, they just go to the next number, which is what Android is starting to do now. They've got yearly releases of quite big software updates, but they've also got some other things throughout the year to improve things like battery life, memory loss and things like that, but I think they need to go to the full 6.0 in terms of Android M. Now based on some rumours there's going to be improvements to security, fingerprint readers and things like that with Android M, but one thing that I'm looking forward to is just being able to style up Android slightly differently. Now we've seen with the HTC One M9 and also the Galaxy S6 and 6 Edge that they've been able to put theming engines within Android, and you've got a similar sort of thing with CyanogenMod as well, where you can put custom icons and things like that and just in general change ever so slightly the style of Android. Now that's something that I'd love to see on stock Android. I do like Nova Launcher, launcher, but the only reason I ever use it is really just to change my icons. So it'd be great if Android could build that into stock Android and allow me just to switch between different icons without having to use a completely different launcher. But apart from that, we're going to have to wait until Google I/O is done, and I am actually going to be doing a follow-up video to this one to see if any of the predictions that I've put in here, any of the votes that you guys put forward did actually come true or were correct. So do keep an eye out for that, and don't forget to subscribe to see that video when it becomes available. I'm just going to wait just for a second while you hit the subscribe button. It's just down here. It should be just above the like button as well. So if you did enjoy this video, you can also give it a like, and as I mentioned, that is just down maybe this side. Yeah, it's definitely over this side. It's down here, the red button. Click that so you get all of the future content from Copper vs Glass. Now, if you guys want to get involved in terms of some community and just in general having a chat with myself about anything in this video, leave it in the comment section down below or on Google+, because I'm quite active on Google+, or on Twitter at Copper vs Glass, and I'll put links to both of my social networks just here. So again, you can just click on either one of these to get access to that and just start talking to me about Android or just in general anything tech related. And that is going to do it, guys. I'm Michael from Copper vs Glass. I'm going to see you after Google I/O, and we'll just see exactly what Google has in store for us. And I'll catch you guys in that next video.